When I first booted up Honkai Star Rail, I wasn't really sure what to expect. I had enjoyed Hoyoverse's storytelling in the past, but it had been years since I had played any of the company's games, and I was skeptical about their first foray into turn-based RPGs. Hoyoverse, also known as miHoYo, have made some ambitious games in the past. Their most popular game, Genshin Impact, has an absolutely enormous overworld with an even bigger cast of characters, but the sheer size of the game makes it difficult to download for PC computers, much less mobile phones. For reference, at the time of writing, the current PC version of Genshin sits at 102 gigabytes, compared to the 60 gigabytes for the entire world of Elden Ring. This enormous game size of Genshin comes with an even bigger time investment, as leveling up Genshin characters can be an exhaustive grind that involves overworld traversal, lengthy boss battles, and searching through literal trees and rivers to find upgrade materials. It can be difficult to justify spending so much of my free time on a single game when there are limited hours in the day. And so, several years ago, despite my love for the game's story and character writing, I eventually left the expansive world of Genshin, anticipating that I would never have the time or the drive to pick up another Hoyoverse title again. However, almost 1 year ago, Hoyoverse rolled out their newest project, Honkai Star Rail, an alternate universe to their Honkai Impact series that revolved around turn-based strategy rather than fast-paced RPG elements, and it did not require prior knowledge of the Honkai universe to be played and enjoyed. It was an ambitious sales pitch, and although I was more than a little skeptical of those lofty visions, I still held fondness in my heart for Hoyoverse's world building, and the prospect of a polished, turn-based game from their studio was enough to make me dust off my old Hoyoverse account. Over the last year, I've spent a surprising amount of time playing Honkai Star Rail, reaching max player and world level in the process, and I have been shocked to find that Honkai Star Rail is not just a well-crafted gaming experience, but in my personal opinion, it is also Hoyoverse's most impressive accomplishment. On a strictly technical level, Star Rail is just ambitious enough to be technically impressive without stretching the limits of the game's mechanics or software. Although players can still control their characters in the overworld, the actual landscape is not one continuous open world, and is instead mercifully separated into self-contained zones that you teleport between, which helps to decrease the physical size and processing capabilities needed to run this game. And not only this, but because players fight enemies in turn-based combat, there is no need to add a jump button or a stamina bar, which might not seem like a big deal, but on a practical level, it makes it so that players can more easily traverse the world of Star Rail, and they don't have to worry about unintended physics interactions throwing off combat. All of these small adjustments make Star Rail much more manageable from both a player and a developer standpoint. Star Rail only takes up 32 gigabytes of space on PC, compared to Genshin's monstrous 102 gigabyte size, which is a tremendous achievement from the developers of this game. The smaller game size doesn't mean that Star Rail suffers on a visual level either. On the contrary, the 3D and live 2D cinematics are just as spectacular as Hoyoverse's other titles, which is incredible! And Star Rail's team has put a tremendous amount of time into the mood, blocking, and lighting of their scenes, which helps to add a lot more nuance to the overall narrative. The Star Rail team has also gone absolutely wild with their character trailers on YouTube, hiring full animation studios to create unbelievable cinematics and gorgeous previews. Like, just look at these scenes. This is one of 3 trailers for one character in the game. Their heavy investment into the look and ambiance of Star Rail really shows. However, this is really just scratching the surface to properly explain just how well I think the developers have triumphed in this game. Let me take you through Star Rail's game mechanics, as well as their world building and character writing, which all combine together to create a spectacular experience. Although turn-based games are an enormous genre, they can be difficult to properly execute. There is a delicate balance between giving players enough technical depth to strategize and making such a convoluted experience that it requires multiple pages of wikis just to make sense of everything. I still love you, Magic the Gathering, but dear God, I will never forgive you for making me learn the layers system. My absolute favorite turn-based games, like the Persona series, Inscription, and Chained Echoes, will reward players for carefully crafting their strategies without limiting their gameplay options. With all that in mind, I am now firmly of the opinion that Hoyoverse has not only succeeded at making a turn-based game, they've excelled at it. Star Rail gives players agency and control over the turn order itself, rewarding players for hitting enemy weaknesses, activating skills in quick succession, or by unleashing character ultimates at just the right time to disrupt their opponent's plans. There is something so tremendously satisfying about playing a turn-based game where you can actively interrupt your opponent's plans and turn order. It's just like casting an instant during your opponent's turn. It's incredible. It feels so good. It's one of the few games that has made me care about character speed as a mechanic, since messing with the turn order is such a fun part of the Star Rail experience. The Star Rail even gives players agency before a battle begins, as characters have special techniques that can be activated prior to combat in order to gain unique attack bonuses or enemy debuffs, and it's all without having to use items. It's a small thing, but it feels even more thematic that the characters themselves can impact a battle, and it's a ton of fun to try out different combinations of techniques to see what will happen when the fight does begin. Star Rail's focus on its characters is honestly its greatest strength, as it makes players even more invested in what their characters do and how to bring them to their fullest potential during battle. Truthfully, I've become a little obsessed with Star Rail's enormously fun cast of characters, which range from stalwart freeze tanks and undying sword masters to cheerful shield mages and chicken summoning warriors. The surprising number of interesting characters to mix and match on your team activates the part of my brain that loves experimenting with fun combos and skill synergies. By and large, I've been surprised to find that there aren't any strictly bad characters in Star Rail. There are characters that are certainly more powerful than others, but the fact that there are so many different game modes and challenges to face means that each character has a different niche. On top of this, the character design and animation work of Hoyoverse's team is always spectacular. There is so much time and effort that goes into making their characters move and act like believable people. Like, just look at this loading screen from one of the in-game events. It's a scene that you'll only interact with briefly, but there's so much time and care that's been put into each character's animation to represent their individual personalities, showing off how they interact with the world and with each other. Star Rail's engaging mechanics and delightful character animations are only a small portion of the game's full appeal. It's one thing to create an engaging game system, but weaving in a narrative to captivate players is another challenge entirely. At a base level, Honkai Star Rail is a space fantasy, which is a tricky genre to write. Instead of focusing on purely magic or science fiction elements, space fantasy tries to combine the two together, attempting to weave an imaginative world that stretches all the way across the cosmos. The difficulty of this genre lies in how these space and fantasy elements are emphasized. How do you keep your story grounded with scientific ideas when literal magic exists alongside it? Many of the most successful space fantasies will try to give their worlds just enough scientific realism to be believable, while letting their creativity run wild with the magical elements. And this still holds true for Star Rail. Within the game's universe, there are a multitude of planets and societies that are connected by high-speed spaceships, capitalist empires, and literal space trains that move through the galaxy, all of which fall under the looming shadows of gods who roam throughout the universe. These gods, or eons, as they're also called, are not hypothetical entities, but they are very real and tangible forces that may choose to offer a planet their protection, or may wipe away entire societies without a second thought. This ever-looming threat of the eons and their most powerful followers, the Emanators, has created an intergalactic ecosystem where some people are devout worshippers of the gods, trying to follow in their supposed philosophies by progressing science, society, and technology, while others are determined to wipe out these cosmic threats entirely, stopping at nothing to topple the thrones where the eons sit atop the universe. While all of this set dressing is remarkable, I think Star Rail's greatest strength is its character writing, which builds upon this tense intergalactic setting to create a heart-wrenching narrative. The enormous, insanely lovable cast of Star Rail brings the game's world to life, pulling you right into their struggles for survival, emancipation, and happiness in an otherwise cruel and unfeeling universe. The fight for equality and liberation in the frozen world of Belobog feels more personal because you spend time with the miners and freedom fighters underground, desperately trying to find medical supplies and food, while the autocracy enjoys blessings of the gods on the surface. The looming threat of instability and violence feels more visceral in Pinocchio because you befriend the people living there, seeing how they are trying to escape into the world of dreams to grasp at their last hope of true happiness. The main story of Star Rail is phenomenal, with some truly gripping fights and heel turns that felt even more poignant because of the bonds that you've formed with all of these characters. Which is why I was stunned to find that the side stories, as well as the events and companion missions, were just as good as the main story itself. The side stories and events of Star Rail are filled to the brim with charm and emotion. The fact that I still tear up looking at this old Xianzhou photograph, or remembering the contents of Pela's flash drive, are a testament to the time and care that have been put into the character writing of this game. The cherry on top of all of this is that, much to my absolute delight, the voice acting of the cast in multiple languages is phenomenal, and there is voice acting throughout all the main story and the vast majority of side stories. The localization team and voice actors have absolutely knocked this out of the park, with some unbelievably well-read lines that convey so much emotion in each character. I'm usually someone who prefers to listen to games in their native languages, but Star Rail is one of the few that I've loved listening to in English, since the voice acting cast has such great chemistry and dialogue throughout the game's story. And of course, I must emphatically praise the incredible soundtrack for this game. Hoyoverse's insanely talented composers and musical talents are some of the best in the business, and they bring the story to life through their incredible songs. Beyond the storytelling, world building, and game design, the thing that has impressed me the most about Star Rail is that the developers have found a way to build this incredible world while still respecting my time as a player. One of the biggest things that drove me away from Hoyoverse's earlier titles was the sheer amount of time that I had to dedicate to exploring the overworld, grinding for materials, only for those resources to still be time or energy gated. However, picking up Star Rail was an astonishing experience, as there are so many quality of life adjustments that directly encourage players not to sink all their waking hours into this game, without detracting from their ability to level up characters. The teleport points are unlocked quickly and are littered all across the overworld, making it so much easier to traverse, and dailies take so little time to complete. I am done anywhere between 5 to 15 minutes most days, which is such a relief. If I want to spend more time working through events or the story, I'll have multiple weeks to do so. And the developers have even archived all story events for players who didn't catch them the first time, which is simply incredible. The developers don't want their players to be punished for starting the game late or missing an event because they got busy, which is such an enormous accomplishment for a live service game. Most stunningly of all is that if you can't log in to play the game for a few days, Star Rail will simply store your excess energy, which you can withdraw at any time when you are able to play once again. As someone who barely finds enough time to play through my gaming library as is, this feature is an absolute lifesaver. It completely erases the fear that I'll miss out on content by missing a few days. And whenever I do have the time to play again, I can just pick up where I left off, just like any other turn-based RPG. Frankly, I can't believe that Star Rail is a live service game. It feels more like a full RPG that just so happens to get fun new updates every 6 weeks. And that is a wild feeling. The game that I thought would fall short of its ambition has proven me wrong time and time again. And on a technical and storytelling level, it is an absolute feat from the Hoyoverse team that they should be hugely proud of. I would love to finish this review right here and recommend that you go and check this game out for anyone who is interested. But before you make that decision to check out this game, there are still some important caveats to discuss about the story's pacing and its monetization as a gacha game before you make that final decision. On the less impactful side of things, I do want to note that Star Rail's gods brush up against the game's mechanics in some unfortunate ways. Although there are a huge variety of eons in Star Rail's universe, there are only a set number of character classes that are based on eons in the game. And for some reason, these classes don't always correspond to the eon that a character actually follows. For instance, in the actual story, Sparkle is an adherent of the Elation, the Slaneshi god of emotion and excess. But as a playable character, Sparkle follows the path of the Harmony, the god of altruism and unity. This doesn't really have an impact on the gameplay, but from a lore perspective, I do really wish that the writers had reduced the size of their Eon Pantheon, or had decided to tie their classes to something else, like jobs or physical aptitude, rather than the very real gods of their universe. In addition, although the game's story is spectacular, the narrative does vary considerably in its complexity, to the point that the very beginning of the game, as well as the events of the Xianzhou Luofu, would benefit tremendously from a better glossary and explanation of key players. If you do want a spectacular summary of Star Rail's fundamental terminology, I would highly recommend checking out this lore beginner guide from Ashikai before getting started. But the fact that I have to recommend a 15-minute explainer video just to hop into this game is definitely a mark against Star Rail's story from an accessibility standpoint. Although Star Rail succeeds in many areas where Genshin struggles, Star Rail does still suffer from similar problems as Genshin in regards to weapons and artifacts. In Genshin, characters not only have to level up their own base skills and stats, but they also have to equip weapons and artifacts in order to gain stat boosts and abilities, and unfortunately, this is still the same in Star Rail with light cones and relics. Obtaining this extra gear and leveling them up adds a layer of complexity and randomness that is frustrating as a player, since it's one more thing to grind for when you just want to level up your characters. Thankfully, because of the increased energy storage and flexibility of Star Rail's domains, I've found that this process is considerably less painful in Star Rail compared to Genshin, but it's still an important factor to keep in mind when you're checking out this game. More than anything, my least favorite aspect of Star Rail, and games like it, is that it revolves around a gacha system, where you exchange in-game currency to try and obtain characters and weapons from a randomized pool, which shares a lot of similarities to gambling. Now, I want to be clear, gachas are not the only type of games that integrate elements of gambling. Loot boxes are the most notorious and openly predatory. In fact, if you haven't watched this incredible video from People Make Games on that topic, I would highly recommend doing so. But beyond that, there are more benign forms of gambling as well, such as trading card games, which will give you a chance at rare cards in each pack, but they won't guarantee that you get the card that you're actually looking for. It's a gamble. I bring this up not to downplay these gambling elements, but rather to show how pervasive they are, and to serve as a warning that these systems require an abundance of caution when you're interacting with them. What separates most gacha games from other forms of gambling, like trading card games, is that there is a hard limit called pity, where you're guaranteed to get the character you're looking for. In most gacha games, pity is the number of pulls that you need to guarantee you obtain a limited banner character. However, in both Star Rail and Genshin, there are 2 levels of pity, one of which takes place at 90 pulls and the other at 180. If you hit 90 pulls, you will get a 5-star character or weapon, but it's only a 50% chance that you'll get which character is featured on the banner. If you lose that 50-50 chance, you'll have to keep pulling until 180 pulls to guarantee that you obtain that limited character. Genshin and Star Rail utilize the system for both character and weapon banners, which makes it almost impossible to save up for both a character and their weapon without pushing your luck or dipping into your credit card to get those last few remaining pulls. Now, I want to be extremely clear. I do not believe, nor am I saying, that Genshin or Star Rail are predatory. Rather, I am bringing this up because the inherent difficulty in obtaining new characters makes it more tempting on a psychological level to drop money on this game compared to others, and I think that's important to keep in mind when you're interacting with the game's gacha system. I adore Star Rail, and as a working adult, I want to support the hard work of the developers who make and maintain this incredible game. But I want to do it without having to feed into this oppressive gacha system. And mercifully, I have found several ways to make this possible within Star Rail. For one thing, you don't have to interact with the gacha system to still play this game, as there are a huge number of light cones and characters that can be obtained just from playing the main story and events, which directly rewards you for exploring Star Rail's world and unlocking various characters. When it does come down to Star Rail's gacha system, even though it has a similar style to Genshin, the average pulls that you get per patch are noticeably higher, meaning that after playing this game for 3 months, I had the full 180 pulls to guarantee a character. Given how often characters get reruns, 3 months to ensure that you can pull a character is absolutely spectacular. And if you do get your desired character earlier than 180 pulls, then you're in an even better position for future banners. In addition, I've found that the average Star Rail player will end up with more 5-star characters, not just because the patch income is higher, but because every starting player will get a standard 5-star character within 50 pulls on the beginner banner. This beginner banner is a brilliant feature. It is something I honestly wish that other games like my beloved Blue Archive had also implemented, since it ensures that all players start the game with powerful characters. The most impressive thing to me personally, however, is that if you are in a financially stable position and you want to support the developers, the premium portion of the 6-week Battle Pass is an incredible alternative to buying packs, as you not only gain extra resources and pulls, but you also don't have to log in every day to reap rewards from it. In a live service game, Star Rail's Battle Pass simply tracks how much energy you've spent every week and what events you've completed, so you can pick it up and put it down whenever you want. I don't know that I've ever played a live service game that says it's okay to get rewards from a Battle Pass without logging in every day. If you do still want to log in every day, you'll get some extra daily bonuses for doing so, but it's not strictly necessary to play. By the way, all the features of this Battle Pass I've been talking about apply if you play for free as well. It will still track your energy throughout the week, and you don't have to play every day to get the benefits from it. It's all coming back to what I discussed before, where the developers of this game don't want you to sink all your waking hours into it, and they want to make sure that their players feel rewarded for exploring this honestly incredible game they've made. During its first year of service, Star Rail won the Mobile Game of the Year, and as a thank you to their players, the development team gave a powerful 5-star character away for free, just from playing the main story, and they did this for 3 patches. All of this is a triumph of the Star Rail development team, not just for listening closely to their players' feedback, but for trying to find ways to reward their players for spending time in this delightful world that they've built. More than anything, the fact that this game still succeeds despite its gacha system is a testament to its talented game design, as well as world building and the insight of its hard-working developers. Genshin may be Hoyoverse's most popular game, but the smashing success of Star Rail is an absolute feat, reflecting how the developers have created a world that respects your time as a player, while still making you want to come back for more. More than anything, regardless of whether or not you have the time or desire to pick up this game, I hope this video has been a helpful look into the first year of Honkai Star Rail, and why this game has found a very special place in my own heart. If you've made it to the end of this video, thank you so much for watching this. I have a tendency to make very long reviews on this channel, so I'm amazed that I managed to keep this as short as it is. If you've enjoyed listening to me ramble about Star Rail, I will be releasing a much longer but more explanatory gameplay guide tomorrow to share all that I've learned about combat, character building, and my absolute favorite game mode, Simulated Universe. So please check that out if you're interested. If you want to listen to me fawn over the characters, as well as Warp Trotters and Mooncake Cats of this series, then swing on over to the streaming tab, where I play Star Rail and regularly sob over the character writing in this game. In addition to this, despite all the harsh comparisons I made during this video, Star Rail did the unthinkable and convinced me to try out Genshin again, where I've been taking the game at my own pace and enjoying the stories that I've missed for several years. Until next time, I hope you have a fantastic adventure sailing through the stars.